Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Instacar HK. Now, many of you will have heard me mention many times before that my ultimate dream Ferrari is the Ferrari F50. Now, while that one is an unattainable unicorn car, I do have another dream Ferrari that, while it's still quite rare and valuable, is relatively more realistic. And I'm very happy to say that that dream Ferrari is the car we're reviewing today, being this 1984 Ferrari 512 BBI. Most of you will have probably heard or read about how the Ferrari BB came about. It all started in the 60s when technology and the automotive world started transitioning from front-engine supercars to the mid-engine, putting the engine at the back, with the racing, Formula One cars and whatnot. Lamborghini single-handedly started the supercar template with their 1960s beautiful Lamborghini Miura, being the first manufacturer to have their flagship 12-cylinder engine put at the rear and the back, mid-engine layout. Ferrari didn't really follow suit immediately at that time because Enzo was always a bit stubborn with having the engines at the front of his car. So at that time, the direct competitor of the Miura, the Ferrari Daytona, which we of course have reviewed before, had its V12 engine at the front. But shortly after, Ferrari had to keep with time and immediately designed a supercar with the engine at the middle, at the back, and which gave birth to the Berlinetta Boxer. It first came out with the 365 GT4 BB, being the first ever Berlinetta Boxer. That one, as you can tell, the designation name was still with the old style, 365cc per cylinder, 12-cylinder equals 4.4 liter. And you can tell the difference with the first one, with a smaller front splitter and actually a more aggressive rear with 6 rear lights and 6 exhausts. That was produced between 1973 to 1976, and it produced about 387, I think, of the 365 GT4 BB. In 1976, Ferrari updated the 365 GT4 BB and came out with the 512 Berlinetta Boxer. Now, you can tell by then their name designation had changed. 512 means 5-liter engine with 12 cylinders, so 512. Although technically this car actually only has 4.9 liter, so it's not 5, but Ferrari always round up. That one has a carbureted engine, and it was produced between 1976 to 1981, and they produced about 900 odd of the 512 Berlinetta Boxer. So in 1981, again due to motoring trend and technology, Ferrari had to ditch the carburetor technology in the 512 BB and introduce the fuel injection system like so many other car brands were doing at the time, which gave birth to this car here, the 512 BBI. I, of course, stands for injection. Now, the BBI was produced between 1981 to 1984, and Ferrari produced about 1,007 units of the BBI. This being a right-hand drive makes it extra rare. The engine of the BBI is largely similar to the one before it, the 512 BB. It also has the same 4.9 liter 12-cylinder engine, but of course, instead of carbureted, it's fuel injected. But like many cars of that era, that first transformed from carburetors to injection, the power of this car did decrease a bit from 360 horsepower to 340 horsepower. So about 20 horsepower less than the previous 512 BB. The red line also decreased by about 200. So whereas the 512 BB had a 6,800 red line, this one has 6,600 red line. However, this car does have more torque, so it actually makes it more drivable and it doesn't feel any slower than the 512 BB before it. 0 to 60 at that time would be about 5-something seconds, early 5 seconds, which may sound slow now, but back then it's actually pretty fast. Right, the time has come for me to test drive this beautiful 512 BBI. My heart is really racing. I mean, it's been a long time since I was in the Ferrari BB. So immediately, everything looks familiar. You guys know I've driven a lot of Ferraris before. The orange on black dials actually is more the 328 era than my 308s. But other than that, other things such as the toggle switches, the middle handbrake are all very similar to the 308 that I have now. This is an injection, as we talked about, so there shouldn't be too many steps for the start, unlike a carbureted engine. So I'll turn the key. Now I know for the carbureted engine one, when you turn the key, there's a beep sound, high note sound. I think that's for the fuel pump, but with this one, since it's injection, obviously there's no need for this. So let's start. Ooh, listen to it fire up. Immediately, you notice the distinctive flat 12-cylinder note. Clutch, I mean, it's not light, but you really have to step quite a bit down. First gear, the transmission is nice, actually less rigid than my 308, but then I wouldn't say it's a Boxer versus 308 problem. All these old cars, they're a bit different. You know, every car is a bit different by this point. Okay, the throttle is a bit sticky on this one, so a bit harder to fiddle. Let's go. Now the car is all warmed up, so I don't have to do the no second gear thing. Gear shifts are actually very smooth on this car. Like I said, less hard and rigid than my 308. Throttle is very sticky, so it's a little bit on and off, which is something I'm needing time to get used to. Otherwise, visibility is great, steering is great. You know, nothing I'm not used to. Feels, I mean, it doesn't feel like the 308, two very different cars, but all the, you know, it feels familiar enough. It's clearly from the same brand and lineage. All right, what have we got here? Okay, like I said, the car is warmed up, so let's give it some beef. Whoa, okay, it's pretty fast. Okay, wow. Just a few short gears here. I did not expect that. I mean, I know it's a 12-cylinder flagship car, 340 horsepower, but that was pretty impressive. Our cameraman, Dave, fell back a bit, like me. I mean, I think we're both quite surprised. All right, now we're starting to head to the highway. Hopefully some open roads. First gear, second gear. Listen to that 12-cylinder. I mean, it's not carbureted, but damn, it's still a classic 12-cylinder Ferrari. It sounds amazing. Fourth gear, listen to that. See, this flat 12 engine is actually race derived. The Formula One cars of the Ferrari Formula One cars of the day actually used to use the engine with the same DNA. So it's not coincidence that it sounds so good. Oh my God! Nothing beats a classic 12-cylinder Italian sound. I mean, just nothing. It's been a short little drive, but fortunately we got to go through the gears a bit. Aside from raving about the amazing sound it makes, amazing exhaust note from that 12-cylinder engine, Now, we're doing highways only today, so I can't tell you much about the handling of the car. But people have always commented that because the engine sits on top of the transmission, on the gearbox of this car, so the center of gravity is actually quite high. So in period review, always said that the car doesn't handle so well because of the high center of gravity. So this is not exactly a track car, a car that you bring to the track. So that I couldn't test today, being on the highway. But one thing I will say though, as I've mentioned in a lot of my old videos, these flagship 12-cylinder Ferraris or even Lamborghinis, I mean, they look the part, they look like a, very aggressive track weapon or whatnot, but they're all actually Grand Tour cars. They're actually Grand Tour cars. We commented on that on the Lamborghini Murcielago episode. We commented on that on the 512 TR, although the TR being an older car from an older generation felt less Grand Touring. But this one in particular, at the moment it doesn't feel Grand Tourish at all. Like, again, we're on a highway, we're not on track, but it does feel like a proper sports / supercar with the way it feels, the way it turns and all that. It's it feels like my 308 on steroids rather than a very comfortable Grand Tour where you feel like you can do thousands and thousands of miles in a week. And here we have it. The 12-cylinder engine, the heart of the 512 BBI. Just look at how beautifully it's presented. I mean, that's why I love classic cars, particularly classic Ferraris and Italian cars, because these days, even with Ferraris, the engine are like deep down in a hole, you can barely see anything, but like this one, wow, my favorite clamshell opening with the 12-cylinder engine beautifully presented here. Now, many of you would have also read and heard that this car, while it's called the Berlinetta Boxer, the engine configuration is not actually a boxer, because boxer is supposed where the pistons go at each other like a boxer punching. But this Ferrari, it actually has a flat 12 where it's still a V, but it's a very wide angle V at 180 degrees. So strictly speaking, the pistons are still going down a bit and not punching each other per se. So it's not a boxer, but there are many stories about how the name came about, including one which was by the designer of this car, Leonardo Fioravanti himself, who said him and other designers, when they were designing the car, they kept calling the nickname of this car as Brigitte Bardot, who is a beautiful French actress from that time. And they nicknamed this car as such because they feel that this car is just as beautiful. That's why they refer it to Brigitte Bardot's initials as BB. Now, I'm not sure. I mean, that sounds like a pretty lame and creepy story, but I mean, it did came from the designer itself. And he said that, when the model finally came out, Ferrari came in and called it Berlinetta Boxer instead, which of course means coupe boxer, because no way they'll name their car after a French actress. But in any event, this is a wide-angle V12, which engine, as mentioned previously, was derived from the Formula One technology, Formula One engine at that time, and they sound nothing like you ever hear again in modern-day Ferraris. You can bring out the Dottici Cylindri, and it would sound nothing nearly as good as this because technology has simply moved on. But just look at this. Beautiful. Now, when reviewing a 512 BB, it is impossible not to talk about its beautiful and unique design. Aside from the beautiful shape, car looks like it's going even when it's at a standstill, and also the front and back clamshell opening, which is just amazing. And these huge yellow indicator lights, which you've never seen in other cars before, having them so big and in your face. But also, at the same time, I couldn't help but to bring my own 308 out today, because as you can probably already tell, the two of them look very, very similar. Now, there are many reasons for that, including it's intentional. Ferrari always have their junior V8 models resemble the design of their flagship 12-cylinder models in the period. So like the Boxer and the 308 and 328 and the Testarossa and 348, for example, is very obvious where the 348 mimics the design of the Testarossa. Now with the Boxer and the 308, the two of them are actually both designed by legendary Ferrari designer Leonardo Fioravanti. But one interesting thing is that I read in the Enzo magazine interview with Fioravanti before, and that is the Boxer was based on the P6 concept car at the time. So many people thought first came the P6, then came the Boxer, and then came the 308. But Fioravanti said in the Enzo interview that the P6 concept car was always designed and intended for the 308. It's just that so happens the Boxer came first, so they had to tweak the designs a bit, and of course to fit that huge 12-cylinder engine in. So technically speaking, if what Fioravanti said in the interview is true, the Boxer actually mimics the 308 design instead of the other way around. Now, whether that's true or not, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, I think these two cars are two of the best masterpieces by Leonardo Fioravanti and Pininfarina of the Ferrari era.